And we have a group here now in Vermont called the Second Vermont Republic, which is a group of Vermont citizens who are coming together to try to influence the legislature of Vermont to vote for independence, right?
Yes, yeah, to convene a special session to submit articles of secession to the United States government. Absolutely.
And there have been meetings at the State House in Montpelier. I attended a meeting with Tom Naylor last year. I believe it was last year about this time.
Yeah, it was November, I think 7th or 8th of last year, 2008. Yeah, it was
the
fantastic.
Bread and Puppet Theater was there, and they did.
Yeah, there were some great speakers. Gerald Celente. There was the independence movement from Alaska was represented. Kunstler, who wrote The Long Emergency and also World Made by Hand, spoke there. So it was a fantastic time. Yeah.
I thought it was also interesting that when the independence movement from Alaska, you said it was there, the woman from Alaska is a conservative, a real economic conservative, and that point of view can get together with the more left-leaning Vermont an Eastern point of view, and we all recognize the need to change things.
Exactly. There's that common thread: is we know something is wrong. The government's not responding to the people anymore, so we have to work together. Also, I'm hoping that the next convention we can get the Texas independence movement, because they got a big grassroots movement going on now in Texas for the Texas Nationalist organization down there. Daniel Miller's heading that up, and that's a big organization. He's doing a good job of bringing about awareness, and Texas Nationalist movement is what it is.
Have they set a date for the next convention yet?
I don't think so. No.
So we talked about why we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. What is the reason for the invasion of Iraq the same? It's the oil, isn't it?
Oil, yeah. I mean, we 6 months ago, I think, finally secured all the oil rights, all the big multinational companies, and within weeks we started pulling troops out. It was no coincidence. That's, these guys, meaning the same neocons, wrote books, wrote articles. In fact, the Grand Chessboard by Brzezinski, PNAC, they all wrote papers in the late 90s saying that we had to secure the Middle Eastern oil. We don't know how we're going to do it, but we have to figure out a way to get in there and secure that oil. We need that for national security. That was their thing, because our country somehow was going to go down the tubes if we didn't have their oil. So they just had to figure out how to do it. And they were just trying to find a way and a reason to be able to invade there to secure that oil. I mean, it's joked about, but to me, there's 1.3 million people dead that would all still be alive if we didn't invade Iraq to get their oil, or if we didn't invade Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein. They'd still be alive. He was a bad guy, but I don't think he would have killed 1.3 million people in 7 years, okay? So it's a horrible thing. These people in charge, apparently from their papers they wrote, believed this was a necessity for our economic future, for our stability. We had to have that oil, and so they needed to find a way to go in there. 9/11 gave them an excuse, but they had already planned it. They had it all mapped out. They had things figured out. They knew where all the military bases were going to go. They had it all mapped out. They happened to be right near the oil fields, which was no coincidence. They had the whole plan. That's why when we went in there, it was, of course, things didn't work out the way they wanted it to, because the people didn't accept us with open arms when we went in there, and because they probably were still mad about the last time we invaded. And also based on another ridiculous lie. I mean, our history with interventions is pretty much it's always the same. We talked about the Central America, but the first invasion of Iraq. In fact, I was at Ground Zero for the 5th anniversary with a large group of people there, and I was with a Gulf War I veteran. And we started talking, and I said, well, you know, you probably know about the incubator baby hoax. And he's like, what? So here's a guy who went to war in Iraq, came back, and he didn't know that he had been lied to about that we had given Saddam Hussein permission to invade Kuwait. He asked us, is it okay? He was our ally at that time. He had suspected them of cross-drilling, which is putting their pipelines under the border and stealing oil. And he said, look, they're stealing my oil. I'm going in, and we're going to do something about it. And we said, fine, we're not going to get involved in some regional skirmish. That's what we told him. So he started to prepare for this, and Kuwait realized that they were going to be in big trouble. They hired an actress to go on TV at the cost of $10 million. They hired some PR firm, can't remember the name of it, and she cried and told the story about how the Iraqi army was coming in, taking babies out of incubators and throwing them on the cold floor and leaving them there to die. Well, it turns out that was a big wag the dog, total made-up story, like the rescue of that girl in the Iraq War. It was all made up. Well, that flipped the public opinion. And in fact, I watched it on YouTube the other day, the girl crying and doing a thing, which was a total lie, and King George I getting up there and going, they're throwing incubator babies on the cold floor and they're dying. And all of a sudden, everybody was juiced up and we invaded Iraq. And it was all a lie. So, I mean, unfortunately, that's our history of intervention. You know, it's not always us, but we don't always get at the truth, and we go in guns a-blazing, and there's 1.3 million people dead in Iraq.
And all the depleted uranium.
Depleted uranium, and it's going to be there for years and years. And after the first invasion, apparently, they said close to 1 million children died because we destroyed the infrastructure, the sewer system. I mean, they were a pretty modern country, and then we never rebuilt anything. And all these kids were dying of malnutrition and diphtheria and all these things they never had before because we blew everything up and left.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we building one of the biggest embassies?
We did, bigger than the Pentagon.
It's done now, so it's bigger than the Pentagon.
Bigger than the Pentagon we built in Iraq,
wow.
the American embassy.
But in between these...
that brings, can I just make a point about
Sure.
it? We just built that whole embassy. What is it, Crown Point Bridge just got closed here. It's a Crown Point Bridge, I believe it's called.
Ticonderoga or something.
And so we have no money to fix it. So that's how the empire, the United
Right.
States empire, has let us down. $650 billion just got approved to go to fight the wars, and we closed Crown Point Bridge. No money to fix it.
I saw that article in the Free
Yeah,
Press
I mean,
last week. Yes.
That's how it's letting us down. It's letting the people down, and it needs to change.
The
people-
money we spent on that embassy would have paid for probably 50 bridges.
Yeah.
It was some ridiculous, like $200 million or some ridiculous thing to build this embassy, which is just amazing. I saw a picture of it the other day. I think it's 1.5 times the size of the Pentagon.
What could we have done with that money?
Yeah.
We could have maybe gotten ourselves off of
And you know,
oil.
the majority of the people are mad about that stuff. I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, what do people do? They were fed up with the Republicans. Boom, they voted Obama in. There's a lot of people that are really mad. You're kind of on the fence that because he hasn't ended the war, but they have nowhere to turn. You know, where do they go next? They're only given 2 choices, and we believe that it's the same choice right now. You know, there really is no difference. You know, they're all working for the same powers. You know, the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, Denny Marceau had a real funny thing. He said, I read this thing where he said the congressman should wear patches like NASCAR. You know, Pfizer, Ciba-Geigy, what's the one down here in Pine Street? Lockheed Martin, all the defense contractors in the drug industries, because that's basically who gets them in the office. You know, they're paid just like Castrol pays NASCAR drivers.
It's not about wrong or right anymore. It's how you play the game and if you're winning or losing.
Right.
It's sad, and the middle ground's been compromised. That's from a song, Drew Landry. He's a Texas singer-songwriter. Sings about that.
Sorry, you were going to ask a question. I interrupted.
Well, you said automatically that Saddam Hussein's the bad guy. You just sort of slipped that in there when you were talking about Iraq. But I think we should be careful about parroting the story we've heard from the government that he was a good guy while he was our ally.
Right.
Now suddenly he's a bad guy, and everybody says, oh, well, he was a bad guy, but, well, let's see, what did he do? He gave the Iraqi people national health insurance, something that we don't have. Was that a bad thing to do? So he wasn't all bad. And we know that Bush wasn't all good. So maybe we should hold judgment on whether or not he was really a bad guy. What do you think?
Well, I was actually just, I was just parroting what the media was saying about Saddam Hussein. I mean,